This is Football Night in America, served by Applebee's.
Hi, everybody. Mike, Tony, Drew, and Mike. We are freeform here. I have no list. You guys have no list. All you have are your playoff pairings, so just have a nice conversation. Why don't we start with Buffalo? Because Buffalo felt like they were a potential 1 seed. Road to the Super Bowl goes through Orchard Park, all that stuff. Then they lost to the Colts, and that opened eyes. And since then, they haven't looked right. And now, after the loss to Tampa, although they came back, reason for concern?
There is. They've got to find their identity again. It's been a lot of Josh Allen throwing the ball around. Defensively, they had been excellent early in the season, had some slip-ups, haven't played great the last couple of weeks. I'm worried about Buffalo.
Yeah, so am I. I'll start with their defense. I thought they were playing extremely well, top 5, up until they lost Tre'Davious White. I think that's a huge loss for them because they now no longer have that lockdown corner to cover the Mike Evans of the world, right? So they're still a very solid defense, but they're not getting any help from their offense. Their offense isn't turning the ball over like they were a few weeks ago, but they're just not staying on the field, and they're not providing a run game that's really controlling a game. It is so reliant on Josh Allen running around making plays, and those plays just have been few and far between.
They didn't have a running back run the ball in the first half of the game. First time in 3 decades you've had a running back not gain any yards in the first half of the game. I'm thinking of the Monday night game, Mike Florio, where they had opportunities, got close, didn't get it in. And again this week, they got down inside the 15 at the end of regulation. They kicked a field goal to win, but they had shots at the end zone too and couldn't convert. And now Buffalo is looking at all these games where they were close, but now they're looking at a back end of the AFC catching up to them in the standings.
And it was so telling, guys, after the Monday night game when Bills coach Sean McDermott was asked a very direct and very simple question. Is offensive coordinator Brian Daboll doing enough to put this offense in position to succeed? And in that situation, anything other than yes means no. And he gave, well, we got to do better with our opportunities, and we got to capitalize on red zone chances. So there's an issue there. And I think what they're doing now is something they used to do sparingly, and they used to do it closer to the postseason, unleashing Josh Allen as a runner. He had his first 100-yard rushing game since his rookie season, and he emerges with a boot on his left foot. So they're going to have to sweat that out. But I think that desperation that they're feeling is going to cause them to let him run the ball more than he typically does.
All future wannabe NFL insiders, reporters are running down, writing that Mike Florio phrase. All press conference answers, anything other than a yes is actually a no. It's great words to live by. You know, this is like the holiday season. People have holiday parties. So people show up uninvited, bring a plus. Well, like the door's open. Look who walked in. Kornacki walked in. Steve Kornacki's here. I didn't even introduce Steve at the start. We mentioned before he's got a bunch of elves with their tiebreakers and khakis, and they came up with Steve. But he's here with us the rest of the year on Football Night. And Steve, we're talking Bills, so join the conversation.
Yeah, well, here we go. I got my invitation right here.
Okay, you did.
So I make sure. Not crashing a party tonight.
Always welcome, pal.
Take a look at the Bills, though. This was a week ago tonight, basically, on the eve of the Monday night game. The Bills were almost a 90% shot to make the playoffs. They were basically a 60% shot to win the AFC East. And they went out on the Monday night. Of course, the Patriots beat them. The Bills took a little hit in their playoff chances, but this is where they really paid the price last week in losing to the Patriots. Their division title odds went down to 34%. Now, what's interesting is they fell way behind Tampa today. When they were coming back, and it looked like they might win, had they finished the comeback and won, they would have been back to a 90% playoff shot and back to 40% in the division. Would have erased a lot of that damage. Instead, though, falling short. You see here, their playoff chances now are basically 2-3, 66%. And then how about this? Who would have thought in the middle of December, and in the AFC East, the odds of winning the title, it's the Bills, barely 20%, and it's the Patriots, almost 80%.
Not good. Not good. A couple of teams. Patriots didn't play this week, and they got to sit back and watch everything shake out, and they're still in terrific shape. Philadelphia also, by the way, sat around, and a bunch of teams came down to them, so they've got a lot of surroundings at 6-7. One notch ahead is San Francisco at 7-6. That was the other game, parallel with the Bills-Bucks game that went to overtime. And Drew, the 49ers hit that patch there where things just weren't working, a lot of missing pieces, but now they've got all those pieces back in the lineup, and you're starting to see, I think, some of the promise we thought we'd find in them as the season got started.
Yeah, anytime you have a solid defensive front and the ability to run the football, then a lot of good things can happen. Now, they've been banged up all over the place, but when you find ways to win games like this, and look, it took 2 muffed punts by Cincinnati in order to give them the opportunity to do that. But at the same time, just finding ways to win close games down the stretch. If they can do that, they're a dangerous team because of their ability to run and dominate the line of scrimmage on defense.
Yeah, they were struggling in the middle of the year. We had them against Indianapolis.
Right.
I picked San Francisco, but they didn't come out and run the ball. They felt like they couldn't because of their injuries. But since then, putting Deebo Samuel back there, they've got back their identity of, hey, we're a tough, physical team. That's showing up, and I think that's going to bode well for them down the stretch.
They have Atlanta and Houston as their home games. Could get them to 9 wins if they handle those teams at home. 9 might be good enough in the NFC in the wild card chase. I'm actually fascinated, Mike Florio, on the San Francisco side. They play at Tennessee in a couple of weeks. That is going to be a bang-em football game. Those are 2 very similar-based teams.
Well, that's right. And for the 49ers, you need to have your best players healthy. We see the difference. But the problem is the way they play. It's not conducive to keeping your players healthy because they go out there, they throw caution to the wind. I mean, George Kittle, what a difference he makes to that team when he is 100%. They need those guys. They need to keep those guys. And that's really going to be the challenge this year. You're throwing the extra regular season game. All these teams that are alive down the stretch, it's going to be a war of attrition unlike any we've ever seen before as we get to the playoffs. Who's going to be healthy when the postseason rolls around? That's going to be so critical.
So speaking of health, there's the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll talk more Cincy and their playoff possibilities. Bring Steve back in a minute. Dallas, we came into the game and said, you know, Dallas has their receiving core healthy for the first time. So Dak's have all his passing weapons, although Pollard was hurt and the running back wasn't the same with Zeke. But it's their defense, Tony. They had the defensive difference makers together for the first time since week 1. And I think maybe we saw what's going to get Dallas through the last 4 weeks.
We really did. And I have to give a lot of credit to Dan Quinn, their new defensive coordinator this year. Last year, the defense was in disarray. They added some new guys. Adding Micah Parsons, of course, is huge. But he's utilizing those guys, Randy Gregory and Parsons, and pressuring, and guys just running and hustling. They're playing very physical on defense.
Got DeMarcus Lawrence back today. It's the first time Lawrence, Gregory, and Parsons were in the same game for more than 30 snaps.
And what's unique just from a schematic perspective is, you know, Lawrence and Gregory are these edge rushers. And when you take a Parsons who can match up on a guard or get a running back on trying to block him, it's so favorable with the way they're able to push the pocket and then create opportunities for the edge rushers. What does that do, too? It allows you to be more aggressive in coverage, and they've got guys like Diggs that can actually cover man, but zone, great ball awareness, eyes on the quarterback. They're creating a lot of turnovers as well. So that, in the way that complements their offense, listen, their offense hasn't played great the last couple weeks.
Yeah, you're right.
When we saw them the first 4 weeks of the season, they were lights out. If they can get back to some semblance of that form with a healthy offense and a defense now that's really found their identity, they could be a very dangerous team.
Can I ask both of you before I bring Mike in on Dallas? Micah Parsons, we're hearing Defensive Player of the Year talk. People are bringing up Lawrence Taylor type impact. I would say, wait a minute, let's see it for several years before we start bringing up LT. But the uniqueness of his skill set, Tony, we saw 3 plays in a row this on Sunday. He lined up at left defensive end, right defensive end, then he was the middle linebacker dropping in coverage.
Yeah, and to have that skill set to be able to do that, to rush over tackles and be able to beat them one-on-one, to blitz and beat, as you say, guards and backs, to be able to drop back into pass coverage, but then as a rookie to have the mentality to process all that. I can play him at 3 or 4 different spots. That's very, very unusual.
That's the most impressive part about it. And it not only is he just a tenacious football player, but his ability to be in the right place at the right time is something that I find very rare for a rookie player.
And you mentioned Dan Quinn. He's doing a great job of moving around because you want to locate him when you come out of the huddle. But finding him is one thing. You don't know what he's going to do.
Right.
And that's been a difference. Mike, what are you seeing with the Cowboys that now perhaps are going to hit this stretch of the last 4, the chance to lock down the NFC East title?
Well, I want to focus on Parsons a little bit more. Not that we haven't given him enough run all night long, but when I spoke to him today, one thing that has stood out to me, he's got an old school mentality. He's kind of a throwback in a game where a lot of the physicality has been legislated away by the rules changes that have just gradually happened over the past 15 years. He's kind of a rough and tumble, not a big talker, goes out there, takes care of business, no rookie wall as far as he's concerned. Hey, I'm going to miss playing when the season's done. I'm giving everything I have to this. And he's the kind of guy that can galvanize not just a defense, but an entire team when there's that kind of mentality, that kind of presence that can rub off on the other players. That's what makes the Cowboys, and we don't know what they're going to be because they were good, then they weren't. But as you guys said, they get all their best players back. But that mentality that Parsons has, I think is going to serve them very, very well down the stretch and into the playoffs.
Dallas, Arizona, Week 17 is going to be a really big game. Maybe with a lot on the line, depending on what happens with Arizona in their games coming in between now, I should say, and then. Quick thought around the table on Baltimore and Cleveland. Lamar Jackson gets hurt again. Cleveland, I felt like they had to have that one to stay alive in the whole conversation, and they do. But this Baltimore offensive thing has been troubling, and now Jackson's hurt again. Yeah, it really concerns me as far as what they're going to be able to do down the stretch, especially if the quarterback is hurt here. So I think they haven't been able to score points. They've been 20 points or less in 6 consecutive games. Not only that, but they've been turning the ball over as well, putting their defense in tough spots. They lose their best corner, Marlon Humphrey, for the season last week. So you combine all those things, and they need Lamar Jackson back, playing at the highest level, scoring points, taking care of the football to almost complement their defense right now. They're not in a position where any phase is really playing well.
Yeah, last year, Pittsburgh was 9-0, 10-0, 11-0. I kept saying, this doesn't look like the Steelers to me. Right. We saw Baltimore. They were the #1 seed at one point. I was saying, this doesn't look like the Ravens. They're not physical. They're not pounding the ball. Lamar's making some runs, but their backs, this is going to fall apart on them, and it has. They've got to get their running backs going. Everything else is going to play off that. So Steve Kornacki is going to look at the AFC playoff picture. Then Mike Florio will let you weigh in on who you see as the key storylines next couple of weeks. Steve?
Yeah, you mentioned, Mike, look, Baltimore losing. What it did today was it created a huge opportunity for the Bengals. The Bengals, if they'd been able to knock off San Francisco at home, the Bengals would have leapfrogged Baltimore, got the AFC North lead, been in that top 4. Instead, you see Baltimore still, at least for the moment, leading in the AFC North, still does right now have one of those top 4 seeds. Cincinnati, by losing to the Niners in overtime, you see Cincinnati falls all the way down to the 9 spot right here. A 40% chance right now, our model says, that the Bengals will make the playoffs. If the Bengals had won that game against the Niners, they'd be where Baltimore is. They'd have about a 70% chance of making it. So that's a costly loss potentially for Cincinnati today. Also, Buffalo. You see Buffalo right now, we just went through their numbers. You see clinging to that 7 spot. They were actually passed today by idle Indianapolis. Indianapolis, by doing nothing, actually moves, at least for the moment, into the playoff picture. The Colts, of course, will get the Patriots next week. And the biggest gainer of them all on the AFC side, actually, you did not see them in the top 10 coming into this week. Now, suddenly, you see the Cleveland Browns at number 8 in the AFC. You mentioned really a must-win game for them, but look at that. The combination of the Browns beating the Ravens and the Bengals going down against San Francisco, suddenly it's the Browns with a better chance statistically than the Bengals of making the playoffs, and the Browns sitting there in the next spot outside the 7 hole right now.
All right, Mike Florio, you heard all that. Any team that Steve just spoke about stick out to you going into the Final Four of the season?
One that continues to catch my eye is a team that was in the 10th spot entering today and is now off the board, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers because, and I've got 50 years in and around Pittsburgh. I know how this goes. We talked about it before the Ravens game, even though I didn't have the guts to pick them to beat the Ravens. When you give up on the Steelers, they are their most dangerous. And that 6-6-1, that and 1 is going to be a factor. We're going to have all these different tiebreakers that are mapped out. It's not going to matter if the Steelers are in the mix. It's either going to be a half game too good or a half game too bad. But I have a feeling they're going to be a factor before it's all said and done.
You think Tennessee at Kansas City, Cleveland on a Monday night at Baltimore, you think they can really win 2 of those games?
It's the Ben Roethlisberger farewell tour. Okay. That Monday night game at home against the Browns. Now, the other 3, who knows? But again, this is what they want us to do. Write them off. Say they're done. That's when they rise up and they surprise everybody.
50 years. Listen to the man. Sounds like he's selling Christmas trees. I've been doing this for 50 years. Trust me on this. The one team not mentioned on Steve's board, the Chargers. Get the win over the Giants. They host Kansas City. If they win, they sweep Kansas City, and they would be the AFC West leader. I think that's a fascinating team. Speed round. We're really going to go fast. Who wins the AFC North? You just heard Florio. He said Pittsburgh. Kind of.
I'm going to say Cleveland.
Cleveland.
Cincinnati.
Mike, go ahead.
I think Baltimore's going to hold it together. They're going to find a way.
All right. 5 NFC teams are 6-7. who makes it in. And let's say 2 of these teams would make it in, because we're going to assume that the 4 division leaders and the Rams are above the line, as the Georgia Tech coach would say. The 2 below the line right now, who are going to be in?
I'm going to say Washington and Minnesota at 8 and 9.
Both at 8 and 9. Washington and Minnesota. Drew?
I'm saying San Francisco and Washington.
Oh, San Francisco's already in, though, right?
Oh, you don't know. I had the Rams in.
Oh,
so you want
okay.
San Francisco as 6?
Oh, no, I got to go San Francisco then. San Francisco and Minnesota.
Yeah, the Rams in. So we all have, I think we all think 3 teams in the West are going to get in.
Yeah.
Mike?
Oh, yeah, I think San Francisco and Minnesota. I mean, the Vikings are destined to do just enough to get in, just enough to get blown out by the number 2 seed, just enough to bring everybody back for one more go-round next year.
You're so funny. I swear, I wish I was with you Thursday night watching the Pittsburgh game as they started coming. That would have been the best theater of the year, by far. Put that on Peacock. New England, Tennessee, Kansas City, they're all 9 and 4. Who's going to win the 1 seed out of that group?
I think New England. They're playing the most consistent football.
I agree. New England.
Isn't that crazy? Honestly, it's really
Hard
crazy.
to believe.
We left after the Tampa game. The Brady returns. You know what? They got a nice team. Maybe they'll get a wild card.
Okay, yeah.
2 months later, 1 seed. Mike?
I wish I could play the tape from 5-6 weeks ago when I said New England's a team in the AFC I have the most faith in, and I was scoffed at.
Bring the tape out.
I'm sticking with New England.
You don't need to play the tape when you're around to remind us of all that. And when it doesn't happen, we're going to remind you too. So,
Well, trust me, I have Twitter for that.
on that note, we thank you. It's nice to hear Kornacki. Who knows who's going to show up at the party next week? We'll keep the door open. Maybe you'll walk in. So we'll see you. Have a good week. Tampa, New Orleans next Sunday night. Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.